me and swim to me, how can you lose? Take a look in the eyes of a legend. Mind over matter, let's fight this depression. Let's fight this oppression. Fight back with aggression. This come with your heart, I provide all the weapons. Come take a look in the eyes of a soldier. I drop that real and it spread like Ebola. Man, on my word, I don't know what they told you. I got the weight of the world on my. Let me talk to them. Everybody know the name. I'm one of one, I'm a god in my lane. The devil up on me, I'm marching in flames. The Lord in my heart, I got my angel wings. They talk about people accomplishing dreams. They talk about me and the rest of my team. Keeping the G and they know what it seems. It get complicated like Avril Lavigne. Yeah, top down, screaming out money anything. Box out, never let it in my lane. Cropped out, you would get taken out the frame. Dropped out, nigga had to find another way. I don't like when you bitch niggas hate from afar. I respect when it's simple and social. Ain't about what you say, it's about what you show me. Decisions you make irreversible. I got a whole list of shit I'm allergic to. Fuck niggas, snitch niggas, I don't want no sort of ties. Most of y'all niggas fugazi and lazy, like y'all never learn how to prioritize. Me and my niggas, we all kind of wavy, cause niggas like us put it all on the line. Straight to the Benjamins, hustle unlimited. Plus, you know we got unlimited vibes. Stay low, go hard, get paid, survive, maintain, no pain, no gain, yeah. Everybody wanna judge, but I never wanna.
You are listening to with show host Wood.
What's good, people? What's good? I'm gonna get ready to get into it. Before I jump into this topic, just want to send a shout out to my man Sleeko. Got bars. I've been rocking with his music in some of my intros lately, or actually for the last 6, 7, 8 months. And he just dropped a new project, and that's the album cover. The project is called God Bless the Real. I think it's 12, 13 joints on there. I'm feeling it. Dude has since I was put on to him, he's I met him maybe a year and a half ago. He's put out this is the third project that he's put out in that time. He's put out a slew of videos. He's got one out there now for this one called I think you can find No Stranger for Love is out there. And then there's also, can't think of the name of that joint. Oh, I Believe I Can Fly. Nice joint. And I'm gonna be honest, not really my style of music per se. Not quite in the area where I live in hip hop, but I do think he's talented enough to where I still really get into his music and respect what he does. So you can check that out. Like I said, the album is called God Bless the Real. The single that I just mentioned, my memory bad as hell right now. I Believe I Can Fly. I think it's over 14,000 views on YouTube right now. So that's kind of a testament to what he's doing and kind of, the fruits of his labor and just the hard work and him stepping up the quality each time out. So the single that I was playing in the intro was actually on his last project. I think the name of that one was Good Vibes. But like I said, man, check the brother out. I respect what he's doing. He's independent. But you wouldn't know it. You might not know it. So I'm just wishing him the best in this new endeavor with this project. Like I said, it is performing pretty well. All things considered. It can't help him. Well, maybe it does help him dropping in this pandemic situation with the shelter in place. I need to get that up there too. Yeah, man. So I've touched on this. I've touched on this subject lately, and I've in some videos that I've posted up, just little morning check-ins and whatnot. I've talked about Bob Arum, Eddie Hearn, and the fact that we continue to see stories about step-aside money and Deontay Wilder. I'm gonna preface my whole thoughts on it with the very real statement that any fighter can do what they want to do, and should do what's in their best interests or their best long-term interests. They should. You don't owe anybody anything. so on and so forth. Get the obvious out there. But when you say certain things, when you promote yourself in certain ways, i.e., I'm a king, king this, king that, I'm a good king, your king, the king. When you go third person with yourself, when you climb to the top of the mountain and you're the world champion, when you have 10 title defenses or 9 title defenses, whatever, 9 successful title defenses, when you do all of these things, then when you watch your arch rival take a fall and you come out and you make strong statements about what that person should do and he could be through, it could be a wrap for him, so on and so forth. And now that the shoe is on the other foot, why am I hearing this? The funny thing is that some people that have been long waving the Wilder flag, just like when he had the meeting with DAZN and they had been bashing DAZN for 6, 7, 8 months, same situation. But now that channels and individuals and the circles that he's traveled in, now that they're starting to put this out there and this thing might be real, people are justifying it. And now we can understand it. It might even be a smart move. It's what a king should do. This is wise ruling right here, however they want to phrase it. I just don't know how it works. I honestly don't know how it works. I'm not even trying to be funny. I don't know how it works. This is almost, have you seen the movie Troy? I don't know what year it came out. Brad Pitt, Eric Bana, Eric Bana. The one cat, Orlando Bloom. So on and so forth. But this reminds me of Hector, the unfortunate Hector. Hector was going to be the king of Troy when his father passed away. I think his father was Peter Fonda, maybe. It's insignificant. But Hector was going to be the king. He was set to be the king of Troy. Troy had this impenetrable wall, and it lived away from, it was kind of isolated and whatnot, and they were thriving as an empire. And life was good. And I'm trying to cut through the unnecessary details. Some people came. Them folks came because Hector's younger brother had taken somebody's woman and brought her back to Troy. And so this king, I think his name was Agamemnon, follows them back to Troy and wants to go to war. He had always wanted to go to war with them anyway because they want this location. And so Agamemnon, in order to give himself the best opportunity to defeat Troy and this impenetrable wall, he recruits the best warrior in the land, the best warrior in the world, in Achilles, played by Brad Pitt. So they get over there, and Achilles and Hector is also the best fighter in Troy. The king, he's the prince, the king in waiting, and he's also the best warrior that Troy has to offer. So Agamemnon and all of these ships arrive in Troy. They have an introductory or a preliminary battle, and Hector and Achilles, they face off, but Achilles and his dudes, the Ammonites or something, the dudes in the all black leather that can fight their asses off. They go in and slaughter this temple, and that's where they've chased Hector down to this temple, and then they they all fall in on him. They could have taken Hector out at the beginning of the war. But Achilles steps up and is like, nah, this ain't a good day to kill a prince. We're going to take everything in the temple, but you and your last few men that we've spared, y'all going to head back. We'll meet up in the future. Cool. So they get back inside the wall, so on and so forth. They have some, the visitors try to penetrate the walls a couple times. And then finally Hector, trying to take a big stand, he goes and attacks the visitors out on the beach from behind the walls, of Troy. And he sees this dude that is dressed in, he sees a dude on the battlefield that's dressed in Achilles' armor. And he goes up, they square off with each other in the middle of the battle. And Hector kills that figure that looks like Achilles, because Achilles has his face, his mask on, and the dude is wearing his customized leather and armor and whatnot. So Hector is feeling himself. He just beat the man, and then he bends over to take off his mask, and he realizes that it's Achilles' nephew, Patroclus. He like, oh shit, I done messed up. It's going to be some repercussions for this. So anyway, he goes back, they like, shut this down for the day. This wasn't supposed to happen. I'm sorry, but I can't take this back. So they take the troops. The Trojans go back up into Troy. And then the Memonites, they go and get Achilles, who was actually in his tent, knocking down, he's been knocking down Hector's niece or cousin. And I think he had an all-nighter with her, and he was tired. So he missed the whole fight. None of his troops knew that wasn't him, nothing. So the next morning, Achilles is pissed off. Hector's got to fall. So, Achilles, he doesn't even bother with the rest of the troops. He doesn't even check in with Agamemnon. He just straight up loads up his chariot, grabs his favorite weapons and shields, and heads to the gates, and gets to the gates and calls out Hector. And Hector is up there with his family. They're celebrating. They just had a major win. Even if he did kill even if he did kill the wrong person in Patroclus, they're celebrating their victory. So Hector runs down on everybody and looks up to the top of the wall and says, you got to come see me. We got to make this right, and I ain't accepting no apologies. You got to come see me. The hell with Agamemnon and all of the bigger issues right here. It's me and you. So Hector doesn't want to go out there because this is the best man. This is the best fighter in the world. It's the best fighter in the world. And he got to fight this man in front of his whole kingdom, his family, his pregnant wife, his punk ass brother that got him in this situation. And where he could control, where they really had control of the war, being that they were on their home turf, he's got to go out here and face this man one-on-one. And he's lost all of his advantage. But he stands tall though. His brother is like, man, let's just shoot this cat with this arrow and get this shit over with. You ain't got to go down there and be bothered with that. But Hector is an honorable dude. Hector is an honorable dude. Hector puts his armor on, takes a deep breath, kisses his pregnant wife, kind of gives her his last words. And he goes out there, he opens the gates. He tells the men to open the gates, and he goes out there to face the dude that he knows he has to be on his A game just to have a hope of competing with. He starts out pretty on even ground. They go back and forth. I think he even cuts. He either cuts Achilles or he grazes his leather or something. He has a good moment, and then things go downhill pretty quickly. And Achilles doesn't like chill when he has him severely injured and could have just walked away, let the Trojans get him and try to work on him or something. He very brutally, gives him a quick soldier's death in front of his dad, his mom, the whole family. Then he adds insult to injury and ropes up the bleeding body of the one-time king in waiting, and he ties up his legs and everything to the chariot, to the back of the chariot, and then just pulls him on off back to the beach. He just took his body. That's how disrespectful and savage Achilles was. So I ain't even gonna go into the rest of the story, but that's where we are with Deontay Wilder. After everything that you've said you are and the way that you've promoted yourself and the fact that you've been running with this whole king theme and everything, how could you take some money, bruh? How could you take some money? Now I'm gonna tell you the only way that this plays for me, I really don't give a damn either way. But if we're gonna keep it a buck, the way that people talk about keeping it a buck, the only way that this would make sense, in my opinion, is that I could see if you said, "Hey, I'm gonna step aside. I'm gonna take 10 M's, 15 M's, whatever it is. I'm gonna step aside so that the biggest event in modern day boxing could take place. I'm gonna be gracious enough to step aside so that they can go over here to the UK and have a venue with 6 figures in attendance. I'm gonna go on and do that, and then as a on the back end of it, I have a fight. I have it's on paper for me to face the winner. So that's what I'm gonna do. That's what I'm doing. I could understand that, but that's not the scenario. Oh, he could also say, and then on top of that, in conjunction with that, he could also say, well, look, right now, with this pandemic situation, which is the whole hang up, he could also say, right now, I can't get over there anyway. He can't come over here because of travel restrictions. So in the meantime, I'm gonna get out of the way of history. I'm gonna let them make this money and combine, and combine all of the belts, and I'm gonna let them do their thing. And then when we can all get back together again, there's nothing holding us up from meeting. Then I'll do it. But that's the thing. If they fight anytime in the near future, probably through the first half of 2021, they don't fight in front of 100,000 people, 100,000 plus. That's not even a possibility. Now, Saudi Arabia, if they were to do it over there, I'm imagining that they could, the money could be big. They could probably do whatever they want to do in Saudi Arabia, but it's not going to be in front of 100,000 people, 100,000 plus people. So for me, without that type of historical significance to the fight, like who is doing something to help out the UK? Who in America is doing something to help out the great people of England? When did that become a priority? I ain't even gonna get into all of that, but that's the only way I could understand it. If it was like, seriously, the next fight is going to be this mega fight. It's significant to the Brits. I got paid. It's gonna be this spectacle, and I'm stepping aside for that. I can halfway understand that. You also throw in the fact that he's got some injuries that he's recovering from, so on and so forth. I can halfway understand that. Quick thing though. I'm hearing different things. He did supposedly he had the bicep surgery. I'm not going to dispute that. I'm not going to question that. But the whole thing that something is up with his leg, maybe knee surgery of some kind or something, I ain't buying that. I ain't really buying that. I actually had on a heavyweight prospect in Stefan Shaw, who was in his training camp, and I asked him, it was on a live stream, and I asked him, did anything happen in camp? Did anything, did you, was he not 100%? Did anything occur last minute that, would have had you believing that he entered the fight somewhat less than 100%? And I really didn't get the sense from Stefan Shaw's response that he had been coached, that he had been told to say anything. The brother just very casually was like, nah, he was 100%. He was talking about how him and the other guys, some of the other guys who were in the camp, like they got together, they settled down to watch the fight together. And he said, gave me no indication whatsoever that anything was being covered up or anything. So I'm not really buying that. Now this bicep thing, yeah, that could be holding up the fact that he can't get back in the gym. I think, he was on the PBC podcast and said that he couldn't get back to work right now, and said that he had a schedule, of when he could resume training and whatnot. And I think all of that is pretty fair. I'm not going to question none of that. But again, ultimately, man, to sit here and now step aside, how can you do it? This is almost similar to Munguia. When Munguia went, now that he's moved up to middleweight, and now it's like, how do you step him back and let him, and let him figure some things out? But you a former world champion. Like, how do you even put the events together? And that's a huge question for me here with Deontay Wilder. Okay, so some of the thoughts are some of the thinking is, you can have some tune-up fights. How? Tune up against who? You're not gonna headline? If you headline, your bag is gonna be different. I would imagine that's kind of offset by the fact that you got this step aside money, so I can halfway understand that. But who exactly is going to be a tune-up? Because I think right now, while everybody can't emulate what Tyson Fury did, while everybody can't go in there and implement that blueprint and get the same success, people are going to try it. And the fact is, based on who he's come through to this point, who is there left for you to tune up against? Because right now, if you put him and Charles Martin in the ring together, I'm not saying that Charles Martin wins the fight, but that's a hell of a night for Deontay. Because nobody from this point forward, nobody in their right mind is going to get in the ring and stand outside and be patient and wait and hope he gets tired and or wait for their punch, wait for their opening. Nobody moving forward is doing any of that. I said here, it's not like I took a lot of my time to do it, but I actually went in, I was just scrolling through something and rewatched Dominic Brazil. Brother just standing at arm's length, no urgency, no game plan, no aggressiveness, no aggression, and just gets the hell knocked out of him. Nobody else is doing that at this point. I would imagine even if Brazil had a second chance, even he wouldn't do that. I think anybody that's brave enough to put their name on the X and actually make that fight, you march forward and you get in his chest and you make his ass fight. You don't sit there and let him be comfortable and let him work at the pace that he wants to work at. Can't fight Gerald Washington again. Can't put him in there with Jarrell Miller. He's no longer with the PBC side. Kubrat Pulev, I mean, because he's involved in this too, which he's probably an easier situation to address in terms of his mandatory rights. But when you put him in there against Helenius, because he got the win over Konoski, F.A. Ajagba, you put him in there with them because he's still kind of green and unproven. Michael Hunter, very unpopular take. I think Michael Hunter might beat Deontay Wilder. Might not beat him. I wouldn't put money on it. But again, nobody is going to stand here and just patiently fight Deontay Wilder from this point moving forward. So I don't even know what you do for a tune-up. I really don't. Dillian White, I probably wouldn't put money on Dillian White either, but I'd be very eager to watch the fight. Maybe Dillian White actually does some road work or jumps some rope or rides a bike and comes in decent shape for a change. But I think he would try enough to get inside, mix it up, and go from there. I'm not saying that he wins. But do you even take these chances? Because ultimately you want him to have a shot at the winner of AJ and Fury. But again, after all that's been said, after everything, I mean, the way that he wrote off Joshua after Joshua's loss, the way that he's carried himself and discussed himself and talked about himself for over 2 years now, we're not talking about Ice Cube and Common reuniting for Barbershop 2 or whatever it was, Barbershop 3. We're not talking about the end of that feud. We're not talking about Cube and Dr. Dre coming back together after the rift, the breakup of NWA. This isn't Jay-Z and Nas putting aside differences, to make a track together in Black Republicans. This isn't LeBron going back to the Cavaliers to lead them to the promised land in the NBA. Like, how can you side with the ops in this particular matter and save face? I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. What's good, Ringside? Is that E? Appreciate you checking in, big dog. But yeah, I honestly don't get it. And then on the backside of it, I honestly don't believe you even come back and win the trilogy. So you might as well go in there and get it over with. You might as well do what Hector did. Put your armor on, get your sword and your spear or whatever it was, your shield, whatever. You might as well go on out there and get it over. Oh, what's up, B? Beeb, you want to jump on and talk about it real quick? Let me know. I'll put the number up. I know you already did your video and whatnot. I watched some of it earlier, but, if you don't, that's cool. But yeah, I just don't know how you and this is the thing when I listen to some of these fan bases and some of the fanals, the fan channels. This is why I don't know how people worship certain fighters and don't just respect the sport of boxing. It was a female on Twitter who was from Alabama and was talking about, and she was in her feelings after this fight. Here you go. Give me a second real quick. Take this off here. Go ahead, man. Hit me up on that. And I'm gonna be honest, years ago, when what's his name? When Roy got sat down by Tarver, I was in bad shape that night. I got into it with my baby brother because he had gotten sick of Roy and wanted to and just was like, hey, it happens. And I was like, I was in my feelings. I was there before. And maybe she's about the same age as I was. But it's like, if you look at this and the lifestyles of some of these guys, the flaws of some of these guys, the decision making, how guys get focused on things outside of the ring, they fall into the temptation of the marketing, the way that these guys are moved. It's all types of reasons why nobody is really unbeatable. So I can go into every fight hoping that my fighter wins or rocking with my guy, but everybody can lose. But after everything that's been said, man, I don't know how you step aside. Now, I guess in the big scheme of things, I guess you could come back and say, if he does have a string of different injuries that he's working through, I mean, this isn't the NFL, this isn't the NBA where medical matters are really disclosed and reporting and all of that stuff is accurate. I guess anything could be said to where they could run out there and say that, hey, based on what he had, his recovery and his rehab, there was some issues with the contracts. The fight had to be done in a certain period. So we thought that, as a compromise. Oh, hold on, man. My bad. What's going on? Oh, they just told me yesterday this joint was paid. Try again real quick while I got it on the screen. But yeah, I'm imagining that at some point they could go out there and say that that contractually, we got to back out of this, and we work together, and the compromise was there you go. Hello? 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 Hold on, man. I might need my headset. Yeah, hold on just a second. I got you. Where am I at? Can you hear me, B? Tripping over here. I got my headset. You still on here? What's good? What's good? Yeah, can you tell me if you can hear yourself on what you're watching to make sure it's not just me talking to myself? I hear you just fine. I just want to make sure we're hearing you on the video. Hold on, let me turn up mine and see if I can get you on here. All right, talk for a second. This is bugging. I'm trying to get Beeb on for anybody that's out there watching, so let me work.
Let me turn up mine and see if I can get you on here.
You can hear me perfectly. Bear with me for just a second.
For a second.
I should be able to, hold on, let me figure out one damn setting. So this is like this, speakers, that's what I wanted. All right, say something, B.
Check 1 2, check 1 2.
There you go. I should be able to hear you now.
I'm good? Okay, great.
Let me make sure it's coming through on here.
I should be able to, hold on, let me,
Give me just a quick second.
this is like this, speakers.
You know it's a little lag on here.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
All right, say something, B.
Check 1 2, check 1 2.
There you go.
There you go. I got you. All right.
You got me. Good.
So what's going on, man?
Yo, it's crazy. Now, here's the thing. The Athletic broke the story about the step aside, but they didn't have any quotes from Deontay Wilder. They only had like sources and stuff. So I'm curious if this is just a rumor or if this is like 100% legit.
And that's
The only this reminds me of, I don't know, I said this on my video. I don't know if you remember, if you got that far on my video, but when Don King, I believe, offered Lennox Lewis the step-aside money so Tyson could unify with Bruce Seldon when Tyson had the WBC title. So, I mean, if you use the cost of inflation, $4 million back in 1996 is about $6.5 million today, but it's still a far cry from $10 million.
right.
So I don't know where he come up with that $10 million, but then he was saying, like, as long as I get a shot at the winner of the fight. Okay, so like if I was him and I got like $2 million step aside and I was guaranteed a shot at the winner, I would take that because he's going to need time to rehab anyways. The more time he takes, and delays this fight, the better it is for him because he was the guy that came out the worst for wear. I mean, the guy's been injury prone for the last couple of years anyways. He tore his bicep in the right arm too before.
Right.
Broke his hand in the right. So he broke his hand, broke his forearm. So the guy's been riddled with injuries these last couple of years. I think he needs a break. So, if he could get any type of step aside money, like $1 million, even $1 million or $2 million, and as long as they guarantee him a shot at the winner, then that's cool too. But a lot of people are saying, well, it looks like he's trying to cash himself out. This looks bad on him. But I mean, I understand it because the guy's got to recover and he's got to rehab. So
right.
I get it. But here's the thing: what about Pulev? They're gonna have to pay him too.
Right. Well, let me ask you this: since you're talking about the mileage and just the damage and everything that he's sustained over the course of his career, so with people adding the component of there needing to be a tune-up, him kind of working with new coaches or bringing in new individuals to the camp, who could he even face as a tune-up that wouldn't be a threat to either where he would incur more damage or possibly things go sideways and he doesn't even win? Like, who can he even go fight?
Well, they were throwing a name like a Travis Kaufman, you know, like someone on the level of that.
Okay.
You know, that's a PBC guy.
Yeah,
he comes to fight too.
I forgot about Kaufman. Who else?
Yeah, maybe a Kanaki. That would be a good fight for Kanaki. One like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at the Konoski fight.
I think that would be a bad fight for him.
Before you got on, I was mentioning, Helenius maybe, since he had the victory over Konoski. But I just, so what I was kind of equating that to was the fact when Munguia, you know, when he didn't, because Munguia, he moved up to, he had his first fight at middleweight already, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And it didn't, and he didn't check all the boxes under the tutelage of Morales.
The world on fire.
Yeah, he didn't say, yeah, exactly.
He
didn't set the world on fire. Well, then in the next week after the fight, the whole discussion turned to how can you step him back and let him get more comfortable under Morales and work on his boxing skills, and it just didn't seem like any viable scenarios to what would be acceptable. Like, you're headlining, you've been headlining fights. How do you now come in and just be an attraction on the card? I mean, I just don't understand how they do that. I mean, but I guess if he does it for the right price, and if he comes in, you know, he goes and fights on Fox, regular Fox or something, and I would imagine, you know, if it was Konoski was the guy, or possibly Kaufman, I mean, I guess it could be done, but it's embarrassing, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's been done before, because remember when Pacquiao got knocked out by Marquez, his next fight with Brandon Rios. I mean, this is a different weight class, obviously, but guys have taken softer touches in between after a tough loss, especially after getting knocked out. You know, Cotto did it, you know, when he got knocked out for Pacquiao. So guys come back, and a lot of times they take a soft touch. But the thing is this, you know, if I was him, I would just take the time. I would just take the time and rehab.
I agree.
And if he really feels rusty by the time, you know, it would be his turn to fight the winner, then maybe they could talk about a tune-up. But I don't think he's got time for a tune-up. If those guys, if he steps aside and those guys fight in December, he gets the winner would probably come around in April. You know what I'm saying? Or April and May would be the next fight. So just take the time and just rehab. You know what I mean? Because he needs a break.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I would agree that if it happens, I wouldn't do the tune-up fight either, to be honest. Nah,
I wouldn't do a tune-up. And here's the thing. Eddie seems so adamant about getting him to step aside and trying to avoid Pulev as the mandatory. Do you think Eddie, this is something I mentioned in my video, do you think Eddie's concerned that maybe Joshua can get upset again against Pulev and then maybe blow another mega fight?
I would imagine in the back of his crawl, I mean, that's something that he would factor in. But I don't see Pulev actually. I don't really see him being that big of a threat, to be honest. I mean, and Pulev is 30. He's above 36. He's like 37 or 38.
Yeah.
But I get it. I get it.
But why is Eddie in so much of a rush to get this fight done with Fury? I mean, is he concerned that maybe Wilder may knock out Fury or something, or Wilder there may be a puncher's chance, and Wilder could knock out Fury, and then that mega fight's done, and then he'd have to, you know, deal with Wilder again, going back and forth with those crazy type negotiations. I'm just trying to figure this whole thing out, because the way Fury looked in the last fight, and seeing how, you know, Wilder is coming off this injury and whatnot, why would he be concerned? Like, why wouldn't he just let everything play out, and then the fight with Fury will be bigger down the road? I don't understand what the rush is to get Wilder to step aside and put this fight on so quickly. I'm trying to just figure it out, and I'm just trying to look at all these possible scenarios and what's going on in his head, and I'm just trying to figure this out. And those are the only two things I can think of. Maybe he's concerned that if Wilder upsets him, then he's got to deal with that. All those crazy negotiations again, dealing with Wilder, or maybe, like I said, Joshua. He's concerned about Joshua getting upset again because of what happened in the Ruiz fight. I just can't figure it out.
Well,
but like you said, Fury should win and Joshua should win. I mean, nothing is certain in boxing. But these two guys right now, in my opinion, are the closest thing to certain you're going to get without being 100%.
Right. Well, I think it's two things, and you can come back on the first one. Maybe he's very confident in AJ against Fury, and then I think it's three things actually. I think ultimately he wants to at all costs avoid any situation where AJ has to come over here to fight Wilder. I don't think he wants that at all. And then I also think, I don't think he wants to go through the negotiations of that. But I think he could just be very comfortable with, his man against Tyson Fury. And I would think that because, and I was getting ready to throw it to you to let me know how you see Fury versus AJ, but I think he's somewhat confident after watching what Otto Wallin was able to do against Tyson Fury, and he's kind of thinking his guy is ready to have that, could have some success against Fury.
Yeah, I mean, I think Fury is definitely the favorite over Joshua. I think Fury would beat Joshua. I just think Fury's style is just so problematic because Fury has really good movement. He's a good boxer. He knows how to really keep guys off balance with his feints. He's really tricky, and then the fact that he can go southpaw as well. But here's the thing. Like, Fury can fight on the inside as well as fight on the outside. This guy's got an 84-inch reach, bro. And he's got a hell of a jab. I just think he brings so much to the table. He's just so versatile. And Joshua showed us a wrinkle in the Ruiz fight.
Right.
But, the way Fury does it, it just looks so much more natural. Like, Joshua almost looked like he was really going out of his way to fight safety first.
Right.
But when Fury does it, Fury feints you, he taunts you. He almost dares you to try to hit him, and he just sets traps. Like, Joshua didn't even really set traps for Ruiz. He just wanted to stick and move, basically.
Right.
Whereas Fury's actually looking to set traps. Even when Fury boxes you, he's still looking to hurt you.
Right.
He's trying to hit you with that punch that you're not prepared for, you're not ready for. He has that surprise element to him. And then in this recent fight with Wilder, he actually mauled him.
Right.
He mauled him. He bodied him.
Right.
And even though Fury isn't the body beautiful, the dude's got some natural raw strength.
Definitely.
He's got that man strength to him. He's a big dude, bro. And here's another thing too: is like he knows how to use his weight.
Right.
He knows how to get leverage, even when he's leaning on you. He knows how to put all of that weight on you and make you carry him.
Right.
And you could tell that Wilder was having a hard time doing that.
Exactly. Now I think the other thing
that wore him out.
I think the other thing with Eddie is, being that he already squandered the mega fight one time, like, let me get this fight in before something goes wrong with AJ, just regardless. Like, it's a chance.
Yeah.
It's a chance to make a historical fight in the UK. It's for all of the belts. And you got a guy. I mean, I don't think it's any way that Fury gets AJ out of there in 2 or 3 rounds. I mean, but class shows over time. So it's a tough situation. But I think you just he just watched that big fight. You know, he just squandered it, messing around, dicking around, and messing up the negotiations, everything with Wilder and Finkel and Heyman. And I just think he's thinking, you know, we can really sell this angle of it being all UK. It can be in the UK, and we should make it happen now and just deal with the deal with the outcome. I mean, in AJ's situation, if he loses, he can just walk away, really. You know, to be after that payday. I mean, if it was an ugly loss, he could just walk away.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that Saudi would put the fight on, or you think it would definitely be in the UK?
Well, see, that's what I said earlier. For me, it's not, in my humble opinion, it's really not acceptable for Deontay to step aside if they're not going to do 100,000 people over in the UK. For it to really have that historical, to really resonate like that, and it's that big of an event. In my opinion, to take it over to Saudi Arabia, and if they have to have it in some makeshift stadium, with still with any kind of social distancing stuff in play, and it's some small, it's some small event, that just doesn't hit the same for me. Just the optics of it aren't what. That's not. I mean, the money. The money is gonna be there. The money will be addressed. But I'm just saying the spectacle, the fact that Eddie won't be able to come away talking about the magnitude of the event. I think he wants that aspect of it. So I just don't see how to take it to Saudi. That's not really. How can you say it's all UK but not have it in the UK?
Yeah, that's true too. But what if they can't get live audiences in the UK? Maybe if they wanted to even do the fight in December, or if they wanted to do it like in January or February. What if the ban is still as such where you can't fight in front of live crowds, but maybe in Saudi you can fight in front of a live crowd. Maybe their restrictions are different. Their guidelines would be different than obviously the United States and the UK. They can make things happen over there. They always seem to be able to do that. So what if the only way they could fight in front of a live audience and generate the revenue that the fight needed, that it would have to be in Saudi? And Eddie already mentioned that as a possibility.
And I guess, and that's what I'm saying. Before you got on earlier, that's what I was talking about. Where there are different things, there are different scenarios based on what's going on. Where these aren't really, and I think you've mentioned before that was probably Chris Carlson on his program talking about reasons versus explanations and whatnot. But different things can occur to where the circumstances that we have to work with are what they are. So this justifies us doing what we're going to do. And to your point, if that's the scenario where just based on the time frame that they want to have that fight, and if the restrictions are still in place in the UK, then I guess us getting the fight is better than us not getting the fight. And I mean, instead of pushing the whole UK thing, they would just push the fact that it's for undisputed.
Yeah, it's funny too because Dana White just put on that UFC event without no crowd there, and I guess he said that he lost about $8 million and $7 or $8 million in revenue off of missed revenue from the live gate. So, I mean, it wouldn't be worth it. Even though Joshua said he wouldn't mind, he would be willing to fight without a crowd there. But the fact of the matter is, would Fury be willing to do it, and would both guys still be willing to do it, knowing the pay cut they'd be getting, because the revenue wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, I mean,
there's legacy Trump money in this scenario. That's something that both guys would have to think about.
And that's why that's going to be the interesting thing here in general is just, one of these big time guys, one of these face of boxing caliber guys, they aren't going to be the first guys coming down the pipe with an event. I mean, there's going to have to be these other, the stuff that Top Rank is talking about doing, the stuff that Golden Boy is talking about doing. It's interesting that the PBC, and this isn't a shot at the PBC, but it's interesting that I don't think we're hearing anything from them in terms of when they plan to resume, operations and whatnot. And maybe that's not their thing, is getting out in front of with whatever, but now that gyms are opening back up, I see some PBC fighters back in the gym this week. You would think that the brass, the bosses would get out and at least say, you would get some word out there that we're actively trying to figure out ways, for us to start holding fights again.
Top Rank and Bob Arum are the only ones that have a plan in place as far as boxing goes. And the interesting thing, too, is I was listening to Dana White, and they had like a 30-page
protocol
guidelines that they had, and they presented it to Nevada, and they presented it to Florida. So they already have like a plan in place, and a procedural type format that they follow to ensure the safety of the event. And they actually, Dana White said that he was on the phone with the rest of the sports league presidents, with the president of the United States. So he was he was listening to all the ideas, and he was saying that a lot of other sports organizations and even from other countries were asking him what he's doing, and he's saying he's sharing that those 30 pages with everybody. Anyone can look at it and review it, and if they want to follow that, they can. But the interesting thing is, Bob Arum was talking about the UFC, and he was saying, well, we have a better plan in place than they do. He was criticizing how that fighter tested positive, I guess, the day before the event. He said that would never happen if it was, with the way we're doing it, that will never happen. But I don't think you can say that, because if you're testing guys all the time, a guy could be positive for 3 weeks, and then one day you test him, and if it so happens to be the day before the fight that he tests positive, and there's no way you can guarantee that no one's going to test positive. As long as you're able to test them before the event starts, and make sure that even when the event's going on, that no one in the ring that at that particular time is positive. That's the objective here, I would think.
Yeah, you walked right into it. I was going to ask you about that never comment, because it's pettiness, and it's what we do nowadays with the different heads of every entity that's out here that's in competition. But I thought the same thing. Like, I know you're losing a little bit of momentum to the UFC with those guys getting back to operations way before boxing. But those of us that follow boxing, we understand the difficulties with organizing boxing events. But again, I thought that was kind of a empty guarantee to say that that'll never happen on our side, because all of this stuff is kind of based around some kind of campus like environment, to where you got to get the fighters and the camps all in one place, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks out. And then, like you said, you have to administer the testing and so on and so forth. But like you said, you got to worry about some strength and conditioning coach, or some sparring partner that's on there, helping with last minute, preparations and whatnot. Do they break, do they go outside of like the quarantine area or whatever? Somebody could go do whatever, and just by, just accident, and you have some situation where somebody does test positive. So I thought that was kind of foolish to guarantee, that'll never happen. That's just something, you can have somebody in the kitchen at the hotel that's infected, that's carrying it, and they pass it to somebody. You just never know. But to say never, I just thought that was Bob just being Bob.
Yeah, that's Bob being a hater.
Basically, especially with anything UFC.
Yeah, he doesn't like Dana White for whatever reason. He doesn't like the UFC for whatever reason, and I don't get it. But I just felt it was really nice of Dana White, because I was listening to him on doing an interview, and he was saying, like, we're willing to help anybody. We're not keeping this information to ourselves. Any sports organization, anybody wants help with this, we're willing to let them look at what we're doing, and they can go over all the things that we're doing. And if they want to try them, they're more than welcome to do that. And I think everyone should do that. I think everyone should be on the same page with that, because it's better for everyone if all the sports are up and running. It's just good. It's just good for everybody, I think.
Yeah, and I think right now with with everybody trying to get back up and running, I just don't see how. There's going to be, especially until there's a decision made with the NBA and a decision made with Major League Baseball. There's going to be slots open on TV to put events on. So there's no sense really in competing right now with anybody, because there's going to be plenty of TV time to go around, and as long as you can put together a credible event and and stage it and do it in the right manner, why hate on one another? Like everybody, like you said, everybody should basically be partnering together to to move forward with this stuff.
Well, it's because like when ESPN has other sporting events going on, that's the best time to start advertising fights. Because you got people watching like football or basketball or whatever, baseball, and then you do throw some advertisements there for the fights, and that just helps everybody.
Exactly.
It helps everybody.
Exactly. And on another,
Fox. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say on another Bob. You can finish that point, but on another Bob Arum storyline. How sincere do you think he is about bringing down the price of pay-per-views? Especially, it's easy to say right now while we got a lot of correction that needs to happen in the economy, but 2.5 years from now, are we already back up to where the standard is $79.99?
Well, I think he's probably sincere about doing that. I think Dana White, didn't they take a little bit off the price of theirs?
Yeah, I think it was 65.
And what is it usually, like 75 or something?
Yeah, I don't know if it was that much. I don't know if it was that much of a discount on this one, because I thought 65 was pretty normal. But you're right, it may be 75 might be their normal.
Yeah. And they got lucky, because that turned out to be a better fight than I think everyone imagines.
Oh yeah.
Dana thought that the upset was totally possible, but I don't think anyone else did. and at the point with the pay-per-view, people that bought that pay-per-view, maybe they wouldn't. Maybe more people bought it that wouldn't have bought it because they were just so starving for some type of sports that, you know what, they just bought it because they were bored. And there were two things that could have happened. Obviously, people out of work, and then people wouldn't have the money to buy it. But the flip side to that is people are just so starving for sports that they just didn't care, and they bought it because of that. So. But again, the government is just pumping so much money into the economy right now, and a lot of people actually are making more now than they did when they were working.
Yeah, exactly.
With that Family Cares Act. So the big problem is the businesses, the small businesses. Those are the guys that are hurting.
Right.
But the people that are able to take advantage of that Family Cares Act, they're making a killing. I know some people that are happy right now because they got a couple direct deposits already, and they're feeling pretty good about themselves.
Right. Have you had a chance?
ahead.
Have you had a chance to talk to any fighters or anything, or any trainers or anybody involved in boxing that was?
I have not, but I was tempted. I was actually tempted to call Bob Arum up this afternoon, but I'm trying. I'm usually I have no problem getting a hold of him, but I'm a little bit nervous to call him now because I don't know what type of mood he's going to be. But it's usually easy to get a hold of him. But maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll break down and do it because I want to talk to him and ask him about this whole step aside thing and ask him about with Terrence Crawford. I'm sure you heard what Terrence Crawford said about how he wants to get the same amount of money that he was getting when he was fighting in front of live crowds. Then that now he's not going to be able to fight in front of live crowds. He doesn't want to take a pay cut. And Bob was just saying that we're not going to have the same type of revenue we had before, where guys are going to be either going to have to fight for less money or they're not going to be able to fight at all. And Terrence Crawford was like, he wasn't hearing, he wasn't trying to hear that. So I'm just curious to see how Bob is going to handle this situation. Because Teofimo Lopez, he was another one that said he wasn't too enthusiastic about fighting without the crowd there. So I don't know. I mean, I think once these guys start realizing that they got to pay bills and feed the family, I think they're going to end up taking whatever they can, right?
Right. And I think, the fact that not just the money, but, how can you sit around, and spend so much time away from the game and get away from living that type of lifestyle and whatnot, which on all accounts, it doesn't seem like that's a problem for Crawford. But I did hear what he said on the Chris Mannix podcast with the SI Boxing, and I was somewhat discouraged because it's just kind of it's just being kind of tone deaf. I mean, but you know what? At the end of the day, it was almost similar to what LeBron James's first response was at the beginning of this thing. He kind of, without putting a whole lot of thought into it, LeBron was pretty much like, man, ain't no way in the world I would play without fans being in the building. That's what I do it for. But then, 7 or 8 weeks later, he's sitting there with facing the likelihood that here he is at 34, 35 years old. It could be hard next year to come back and try to be in the same position as they are right now, going into the playoffs and having a number one seed. Him being a year older, going through another season, it might be more worth his while right now to play under any circumstances and take a shot at getting this ring, regardless if it's going to have an asterisk by it or not. It just might be it might be what you got to do for right now.
What do you think of Shaq and Barkley saying that they should just scrap the season?
Yeah, I was actually going to do a video about that earlier, or a live stream about it. I think it's easy for everybody. I think it's easy for certain people to run out there and say, shut it down. And I was saying that maybe a week and a half ago. But, with a lot of different sectors of the economy getting back to work and trying to get back to work, I just feel like, why wouldn't, if this is your time of year where your biggest event typically goes down, why wouldn't you be actively trying to work towards, troubleshooting or exploring any way for your league to work and finish out its season? And I feel like as long as, you got to think, man, these at some point, the cost of everything being shut down, at some point it's going to start having real impacts on everybody. And, these guys have arenas that are sitting around empty. These guys have equipment, team planes and team vehicles. They have the people working in the concession stand workers and the people at the venues and whatnot. You gotta try to find a way to resume operations and salvage some kind of revenue from this year.
Yeah. And let me ask you this: it looks pretty good for the Lakers this year. Like they would probably win it. Do you think they were the favorite to win it this year?
Definitely the favorites. I mean, they would have had to get past, the Los Angeles Clippers maybe, and see kind of what Houston was able to do, and a couple of other teams out west. But in all likelihood,
What about the Warriors?
They were done. The Warriors are actually one of the teams that would be very comfortable with shutting it down right now because they were already out of it and they're already positioned well to get a pretty high draft pick. And you're talking about a team that would be getting back Klay Thompson and Steph Curry and having the opportunity to land a top 5 draft pick. It's almost like how the Spurs got Tim Duncan back in the day. It's kind of that same scenario. And then with the Lakers,
what did you say, LeBron? Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, what did you say? LeBron's 35 now?
I believe he's 34 or 35.
How many years does he have left? Could you see him playing until he was 40?
I think he was encouraged by the season that he was having, the minutes that he was logging, and having won it.
Isn't he?
So what?
He's in great shape, huh?
He's a mutant. I mean, and no other description about it. I mean, the dude is a mutant. I mean, until last year, I think year 16 for him, he really hadn't had any significant injuries until he had the growing situation last year that cost him a bunch of games. But he came back this year and was playing a lot of minutes. Wasn't sitting out too many games. Really doesn't even subscribe to the whole load management thing. And just statistically, player efficiency and all of that type of stuff, everything was trending in the right direction for him. Like I said, the major obstacles were the Los Angeles Clippers with with Kawhi Leonard and George Paul, and then getting through to the Eastern Conference, facing Giannis Antetokounmpo. That was kind of it was all lined up, for him.
Yeah, I got you.
But
you think LeBron's like more? You think LeBron was like more durable than Jordan? I mean, I think Jordan's a better player, but you think like physical wise, you think like LeBron is just like more durable, or do you think because the league is a lot different now that he hasn't gotten beaten up as bad as Jordan did when he was playing?
Well, with the rules changes throughout the years, I do think that LeBron really hasn't been exposed to the type of contact that Jordan was. And then I say this all the time, I honestly I feel like LeBron has been so imposing physically for the bulk of his career. You just really haven't seen guys stand in his way and take charges. You haven't seen guys hammer him and send him to the ground. He really hasn't taken that beating. I mean, I've said this in previous years. LeBron is probably the one guy you really can't find. I would be hard pressed to find until last year, because I think, or maybe it was 2 years ago. I think the little guy from Toronto, the point guard. I think he took a charge from LeBron. But I think previously in past postseasons, it really hadn't been guys when LeBron came down or got into the lane. Guys did not step in there and try to draw charges on him.
Yeah, he's fast too.
I think that's the one thing.
Fast, he's strong.
I think that's the one thing that stands. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you can argue that he may be a better athlete than Jordan.
Oh, hell yeah.
You can argue that.
Oh, hell yeah.
You can argue that.
I I, 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 I was honestly getting ready to say. I mean, I was sitting there a few years ago, when I was watching it, and I said, my revelation or epiphany was that I really don't think I've ever seen a man at his size. I think that's kind of the difference between him and Jordan as athletes. I feel like LeBron has had a motor to where he has enthusiastically ran down the court just all throughout his career. Like, anytime there was a steal, any break opportunities, I mean, he's the first or second guy down the court all the time for 17 years. I mean, his motor, in my opinion, I've just never watched any basketball player do that.
I guess I was reading somewhere where he runs like a 4.3, something, like a 4.3, like 4.35 40 or something like that. He's like just as fast as Jordan, maybe even a little faster.
Yeah, he's
quick. He's really quick.
Well, I believe he was he didn't play football his senior year, I don't think. I'm not sure if he played his junior year or not. But I mean, he was like an all-state caliber wide receiver until, he said he was done with it. I don't know the only thing that I don't know where they clocked that 40 at. I have seen the write-up, like the scouting report on him. I have seen that, but I haven't been able to track down kind of where that or how that was recorded.
What's he like, 6'9"?
6'9", 6'8", easy.
Yeah.
He's just
a big dude.
He's a freakish dude, man. I mean,
he's like 250.
Easy.
Yeah. The most Jordan was like 215. But when he first came into the league, he was like 195. I think LeBron's always been 250, right? Right
around 240, 250. I saw something yesterday or earlier this week. I was looking through information and whatnot. The one thing that I didn't realize, and this speaks to his size and his his physical advantages and how imposing he's been against the guys in the league the last several years. He shot 60% from the field like 5 or 6 times in his career, whereas Jordan, I don't think Jordan ever really shot over 57%. And I just think you can attribute that to the fact that, like I said, when he's going to the hole, when he gets to running downhill, you just don't have guys stepping in, drawing charges.
Yeah, we think he's a better passer, him or Jordan.
I would go with him. I definitely would go with him, but I do think
he's a great passer.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting though that if you look at Jordan's assist numbers for the scorer that he was, his assist numbers weren't horrible.
What did LeBron averaging? I think career-wise for assists, like 7.5 or something like that.
I would probably say around there.
And I think Jordan averages like 6.
Yeah, I that sounds about. That's what I'm saying. Like 6 is not bad for most point guards right now in the league.
Yeah, I think Mark Jackson, or no, not Mark Jackson. I think it was Gary Payton. I think he only averaged about 6 assists for his career. I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
But he was kind of a scorer, even Isaiah, who was a very good scorer. I think he averaged like 9.5 assists for his career.
Right.
It's not bad at all. It's funny how this Last Dance has been making me really go back and look at the NBA, because I watch basketball every now and then, but I used to watch basketball religiously back in the Jordan, Barkley, Karl Malone, during that era, like the late 80s, early 90s. I used to watch it religiously. And then when the Celtics had KG and they had Ray Allen, and they had Paul Pierce. Then I started watching it again, but I kind of got away from it again. And now because of this documentary, maybe I'll get back into it. You know.
That's been my issue. I'm with you. I'm in the same boat as you the last several years, man. I really haven't been. I watch it, but I'm not truly sold on what I'm watching, and I just over the last several years, like I said, especially with us being on the eastern side of the map, you being on the East Coast, I really haven't seen the level of competition that is worth me sitting in and watching, 82 games and 4 rounds of best of 7 basketball. I just really haven't seen that type of that quality of basketball for me to really lock in and do that.
Yeah. Now, how do the Cleveland fans perceive LeBron James? Do they have like a love-hate relationship with him? Were they mad when he left the second time?
I think they were disappointed this time around, but I think they just understood the reality of the situation and just kind of accepted it. I think it was a slap in the face, but that's another thing, man. With me being, I'm actually like 3.5 hours south of Cleveland, but a lot of these franchises throughout the Midwest, man, it's difficult as hell to have a competitive team because there's just all the money that the NBA guys make. It's very difficult to tell a man worth that much money in the prime of their career to live in Minnesota, Milwaukee, Detroit, Cleveland. I mean, man, dudes are going to the bigger cities, Miami, Los Angeles. You got 2 teams in Los Angeles. I mean, it's just better options out there, man. It's just better options out there.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, if you don't get a kid at 18, and really he fall in love with the front, I don't even care. It doesn't matter. If you're one of these smaller market teams, at the end of his 4 years, when that guy is 21, 22, 23 years old, the media starts planting the seed that they need to go to a big time market. They do it.
Yeah.
And you know what? Those guys, the TV guys, the beat writers, and all of the guys, they don't want to travel to those places to cover those guys, man.
That's true. That's true.
They don't want to, when it gets to June, late May and all of that, the weather gets nice. These guys don't want to go spend a week and a half in Minnesota or Milwaukee. And let me get some final boxing thoughts for you before I get on out of here. Thanks. I definitely appreciate you calling in, man, and adding to the discussion and whatnot.
No doubt.
With the opportunity of either Golden Boy, getting back to work, or Top Rank getting back to work, are there any prospects or anybody that's just at that stage in their career where it's still feasible for them to be fighting during the as things reopen? Is there any prospect out there that you think this could be an opportunity for him to get in front of fans and maybe get in front of some eyeballs that he wouldn't get in front of normally? And who would that guy be, or those guys be?
This should be a great time for like a guy like Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney. These guys can shine right now, I would think, because some of these big money guys, they're not like a guy like Crawford. To get the money that he's used to, he's got a guaranteed minimum. But like I said, like these other guys, they're young, so they'll take what they can get. They haven't been experiencing crazy paydays yet, so it'll be easy to get those guys to take fights as opposed to the bigger money guys, because the bigger money guys are gonna want the big paycheck. So the younger guys who are trying to make a name for themselves, like Devin Haney's and the Ryan Garcias, and who's the other dude there? The guy that Andre Ward manages. What's his name there?
Shakur Stevenson.
Shakur Stevenson. He's another one. So those three guys right there. I mean, it's perfect time for them to get some shine, because maybe the other guys will be turning down fights, and like Bob Arum said, he's ready to open up in June, and whoever he's going to be offering fights to people, and whoever turns them down, he's just going to move on to the next. So I can't envision these younger guys turning down fights, But Arum's got Mickey Conlon too, but he's going to have an issue dealing with these guys that are based in Europe, because they won't be able to come to the United States to fight.
Exactly.
So he's going to have to focus on the American fighters.
Right.
I'm curious to see what the Zone has planned right now.
Definitely. Definitely. I was thinking, I don't know if they can match him against anybody compelling, but I think it'd be an interesting moment for that the Edgar Berlanger kid. I don't know if you're familiar with him, for top rank middleweight. I think it'd be a good moment to get him in front of some people and see if, I don't think he's made it out of the first round through like his first 12 or 13 fights. New York guy. And then middleweight, not being a lot of bodies at middleweight in some regards, he might be he might be kind of like
a moved up to super middleweight.
Right. But he might be a decent guy to get in front of some eyes and see if he can, captivate, somebody and be a guy for fans to look forward to.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to check him out. But it's going to be funny because the zone has got these contracts with Golovkin, and Canelo, and they're all big. They got some big money guaranteed contracts out there. How are they going to pay these people now if they can't put these fights on in front of live gates? Where's the revenue going to come from?
And it's crazy, man. I've kind of been vocal about this on my platform and whatnot. I feel like I'm kind of empathetic or whatever you want to say for the Zone. Like, I feel like they've come into boxing trying to do good with ulterior motives. I mean, they have been trying to do something with boxing to get their hands on NBA, Major League Baseball, and NFL. That, there's no secret about that. But I felt like in doing so, their hands or their feet were kind of held to the fire, in the sense that they had to put on compelling fights and do things that were hitting certain metrics, so that they could go to those other leagues and whatnot and state their case. Why other teams, why other sports leagues and whatnot should get in bed with them. So I felt like their intentions have been good for the most part, but yeah, this money situation. I mean, all this money tied up in Golovkin, 30-something million tied up in per fight tied up into Canelo. Yeah, man. I mean, and the fact now that when's the last time anybody even opened the Zone app? While they sitting here with my, while they're sitting here with my year's worth of, subscription that I haven't cashed in 2 months. When is a statement coming in turn, with regards to, hey, we know we got your money, and, our plan is to give you a free 2 months on the back end of this. When is that happening?
Yeah, that's true. Because I pay monthly, and it's, the funny thing is I don't recall them taking any money out recently. So I wonder if they're freezing it right now because there's no fights. I don't know. But I know ESPN Plus has been taking the money out. So
yeah, that's crazy.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm kind of interested, you know, like I said, because what I saw was Top Rank was talking about 1 or 2 cards per week, you know, only 3 or 4 fights on there.
Yeah, they're going to make the card smaller, they said.
Yeah, I would be really interested to see, you know, they got a bunch of guys that I don't know all of them, you know, I know all of them by face and whatnot. So it's a chance if they can match some of these guys right. You know, maybe 1 or 2 of the up and coming guys could, you know, can distinguish himself a little bit, you know, and set himself up for some, you know, for something after this. The one interesting thing, from what I understand, if they wanted to actually try to do a world title fight, which I was getting ready to try to hit the dude up to see if he would call in, but I guess that Casemiro kid has been over here in America for a while. Well, he was supposed to fight on the 25th against Naoya Inoue.
Yeah, it's correct. I remember that.
So some of the thoughts out there were that Joshua Greer Jr. out of Chicago, who's like #1 rated, I believe, in the WBO or the IBF, one of those, was that they could match those 2 guys up, you know, and actually have a title fight.
Oh, wow. Sounds interesting.
And then Joshua Greer was actually going to be in the co-main event against one of them Maloney cats from, you know, from down under. They were actually going to fight for an interim title of some kind or something. And but like I said, Maloney never got a chance to go over here. But for some reason, Casemiro had come a couple months early and was training in Las Vegas. So you know, that's an opportunity for them to have a world title fight. You know, in the midst of all of this, you know, it could be a big time fight if Greer. You know, and I've talked to Greer quite a few times, so I know he wants that fight. But it's just kind of interesting coming out of this situation where everybody wasn't able to get to the gym for 7 weeks. But other than that, and that's the thing, you mentioned Ryan Garcia. Like, who could they really, for the net, you know, say they get a fight. Because they're trying to hold that July 4th date for him. If Linares can't get here because he's over in Japan or whatever, like, who could they bring in to match Garcia up against to make it, you know, a meaningful fight?
That's a good question.
That's
a real good question.
What's your thoughts on how would you play it if you had if you had Garcia and Devin Haney? You know, Devin Haney is really adamant about wanting that fight, but it just seems a year and a half or 2 years premature with Garcia not holding the title, and it just seems it just seems weird right now. How would you play that?
Well, Garcia got a lot of potential, and I would probably make that fight probably next year, not like late next year or maybe the year. If I was to make it next year, I'd make it like late next year or early the year after. Because Ryan Garcia got a lot of potential. He's got the look. He could be a mega star in the sport of boxing if he moves correctly. So why you know what I'm saying? They could build him like they built De La Hoya. Like De La Hoya, he was carefully built up and marketed properly, and look what happened to him. He became a superstar. So I think De La Hoya is probably trying to do the same to Ryan Garcia because he knows the blueprint. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a funny thing that you mentioned that is one of the fights that I went back and checked out. Was like an early De La Hoya fight, like down in Texas or something, and it was like 35,000 people there or something, and I was like, damn, I mean, who has that kind of draw right now? And this wasn't even like after his 30th fight or something. I mean, it was kind of early on for the guy, but it was like 30. Yeah. It was like 30,000 people there.
Yeah, he came out highly touted, man. He turned pro. I remember.
You got any interest of what's going on with the Olympic boxing team? Any you checked in on any of that at all?
I haven't even looked into it, but maybe I will. Should I? Is it worth it? I just don't want my heart to get broken.
Yeah, I looked at I was trying to, I mean, they obviously they pushed Tokyo back to next year with the Olympics and whatnot. So, but I had started checking in on some of the outcomes of some of the tournaments and whatnot, and was looking forward to getting familiar with some of the guys, and even it's two girls on there too that are kind of have good chances to medal. The one girl from Ohio was like a favorite to just walk away with the gold medal, so that was interesting. Oh, wow. But on the men's side, there's 2 or 3 guys, but I don't know, man. I went and looked at where they were rated. I forgot what website I was on, but I went and looked where they were rated internationally, and a lot of them were like, I mean, the highest one, I think the top dude is this Keyshawn Davis kid. I think he's out of the Virginia. Okay. I think he's out of the Virginia area, I want to say.
Okay.
You got another dude named Delonte Johnson, I believe, from up in Cleveland. Some promise to him, but he might have been like a top 12 international guy. And then, the heavyweight that they were really big on was, he's actually out of Toledo, but he went pro. And it's like 4 fights in. He's another one. When we speak of somebody that could use some good face time in this moment. Can't think of his name. Jared Anderson, I believe is his name. He'd be an interesting guy to get in front of fight fans. With him only being at like 3 or 4 fights, they could bring him in as the opener, on one of these 3 fight cards or something.
Yeah.
But Devin Haney, what would you do with him?
Wow. Who can we put him in there with?
I mean, he was looking at Fortuna or Luke Campbell, which are both. Fortuna.
I liked the Luke Campbell. Fight a lot, but now that's not going to be able to happen. But who's the guy that Teofimo Lopez beat for the title? That was that guy, Richard Comey.
Comey.
That would be a good fight for him. I like that fight for him. Like a Richard Comey.
Yeah, I
think he's ready for someone like that.
Yeah, I just hate the timing of it with Comey coming off of a 2nd round stoppage, but I guess it could work.
That could work,
That's it. I mean,
I was shocked at that fight, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had no idea it could unfold like that.
That was crazy.
I mean, I had absolutely no idea whatsoever that it could unfold like that. I mean, and it's kind of scary because, Teofimo mentioned that, he started after the Nakatani or the Japanese kid that he fought the fight before in D.C. He said he started going
through some shit. He said he's going through some shit during that fight.
Yeah, and he said he started going to therapy, and and he got farther away from his wedding, where he went through a lot of conflict with his family, not being pleased with who his bride was. And so, with the Comey fight being farther away from that and allowing all of those different family situations to kind of die down, he was able to get focused. We didn't hear anything about him complaining about making 135. And, he just looked super explosive that night, obviously.
Yeah, he looked great. He looked great that night. He was on top of his game, bro.
Yeah, I don't know how they explore or continue to explore the fight with Lomachenko, man. But that was such a huge. That had to be such a huge.
Looking forward to that fight so bad. I was so disappointed what happened when that fight couldn't get made.
I mean,
because this virus screwed up everything, bro.
Yeah, I mean I hate to disregard the the real world impact of it, and all the lives that have been affected by it and those that have perished because of it. But like you said, yeah, I mean in terms of sports, man, I mean it's just wiped out. It wiped out quite a bit. I mean, and there's no. The lingering effects of it. There's just no way to, like you said. I mean, this is a serious concern of how to go about, boxing. This isn't a tennis match, where guys can go play in an empty arena and still, compete at the same level, despite nobody being in the stands cheering for them. This isn't the PGA or NASCAR. I mean, boxing is kind of it's gonna be very weird.
It's gonna be funny.
So, hey, any final words, man? Like I said, I appreciate you 3,000 for jumping on with me, man.
No problem. Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking forward to June, and that UFC without the crowd there. The one awesome thing about it is you can hear every punch. So I'm kind of looking forward to that boxing. It's like you can hear how hard the punches actually are, like because there's nothing to drown out the noise of it. So I'm really anxious and excited to see boxing in this new type of format, and I'm curious to see the types of matchups that we're going to get. And like you said, hopefully some of these younger guys will be able to seize the opportunity now that some of the other big guys are not going to be in these mega fights now. So maybe these guys will be put to the front of the line, and they'll be able to be showcased now. So I'm looking forward to all that.
Before you do go, you hadn't done a Tyson video yet, had you?
I did.
I missed that one.
I kind of made a troll video. You know what I said? I was trying to bust the Deontay Wilder fans' balls, and I was like, can a 53-year-old Mike Tyson beat Wilder now?
Yeah, I did see that one. I didn't get to watch that one yet, but
I was trolling everybody with that one.
Do you?
But I'm actually excited about him too. I would not mind seeing Mike Tyson in 4-round exhibitions right now.
Yeah.
I honestly would not.
Do you think he's doing too much though by floating it out there that he's interested in facing, live competition, like, no headgear, real fights? Are you concerned about that?
A little bit, but I think if he's matched properly, I think he'd be fine. I think he's smart enough to know that he can't fight an Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury right now, but they'll find the right guys for him. He just doesn't want to fight like a guy that's not a fighter at all. So if he can fight guys like, if they could do like a seniors tour with him, like sort of like the amateurs have with what's called the Masters tournament.
Yeah.
If they could do that for him in the pros, he'll be fine. He'll be fine.
You know, I'll be honest with you, man. I felt like we didn't have all the coverage that we have now. We didn't have all of these YouTube channels and everything, and all the different platforms that we have now. You know, even those people were putting on fights and whatnot. And it just wasn't as many, you know, it wasn't as much news traveling around, and it wasn't as much analysis and opinions back when it ended for him. But it really wasn't the wind down that I enjoyed to his career. It really wasn't one that I enjoyed seeing. And that last image of him laying against the ropes when I can't remember who that was that knocked him out in the last fight.
Was it Kevin McBride?
Yeah. To see him just kind of sit there and just like, and look like that, man, I didn't like that, man.
Yeah, that wasn't right.
It just seemed like, I don't know if his money was messed up. I don't know if the tax man was in his pocket. I don't know if he just didn't really have a connection with the training team that he had around him. It just seemed like he was in there for all the wrong reasons, and he was just.
He said that at the end of the fight. He's like, I'm done. I was just in here. I needed to pay my bills, and that's exactly what he said. Yeah, he was done.
So in seeing him now, and this is like 5 or 6 weeks after we heard him crying on the one podcast when he was talking about all those years that he spent becoming what he became and becoming the savage and the monster in the ring, and he was like he missed that guy. It's kind of weird that at 53 he rekindles all of that and is like looking for something to do with that guy now.
Yeah.
The game
story. It's a great story, man.
So, hey, well, I'll let you get out of here, man. I had sent out a text message to see if I could get somebody to call in. Looks like that person might be busy, so I'm gonna shut this down. But I do appreciate it, though, man.
All right, be good, man. Thank you.
Yep, take care. Keep grinding.
Stay safe. Yeah, stay safe, bro.
You too. Hey, so that was obviously B of the Ringside Reporters show. Check them out on Sunday nights. I'm sure you know if you watch boxing and whatnot. I'm sure you're very familiar with them on Sunday nights at starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time. They usually rock for about 2 hours. Him and Eric, as you know, over the last 7 or 8, 9 months, they've made several changes to the program and whatnot, and taking it in a different direction. And then throughout the week, you can catch Joe Habeeb, doing just kind of random check-ins and discussing random boxing topics and whatnot. So, and they also have calls on, on Sunday night too. So, like me, if you live in a city where you don't have an outlet to discuss boxing and whatnot, nobody around you gives a damn about the sweet science on the same level as you. I definitely would encourage, to call into that and get your takes in. There's also on Tuesday nights. There's also the Ringside Reporter. The Rope-A-Dope podcast with Christopher Carlson. That's another program that you can call into and talk some boxing and get your thoughts out there and help. That's one thing that's frustrating with these platforms, man, is that people are doing these for different reasons. A lot of people though just to out of a love for the sport. Not that they're trying to gain anything or be the next Max Kellerman or anything. It's some people that's just genuinely just working at this thing, and there's different there's different lanes where certain fans might be comfortable in this space, but uncomfortable over in that space. So it's kind of different. It's different areas for people to get their voice out there and the people that do these shows day to day, week to week, they would appreciate that real engagement, versus just tweeting or sitting around, doing different posts on Instagram or something. It's some dudes out here that have invested years into covering the sport, and they just would appreciate that tangible support. So anyway, like I said, if anybody did want to call in, I'm gonna be on here for just a couple more minutes. With Beeb calling in, it definitely took me away from what people, if you're scrolling by and you see that I'm talking about the Wilder situation. Beeb actually said a couple of things that made me look at it a little differently. But again, my main stance is the way that Deontay Wilder has kind of built himself up, and I throw that disclaimer out there again. We haven't heard anything from him directly. We haven't heard anything from Shelly Finkel. You haven't heard anything from Tim Smith over at PBC. You haven't heard anything disputing anything or squashing. You haven't seen anything from his side. So at this time, it is just speculation, but it is interesting that weekly, for the last 3 weeks, it's been a different story, each week about stepping aside, about step aside money. And then like today, this is all coming to a head with platforms and sources that have supported have supported Deontay Wilder, vehemently and flagrantly. Now you see those programs, and those channels and those boxing figures and whatnot. Now you see them discussing it. These are people whose platforms Deontay Wilder has called into multiple times. He's welcomed those guys, some of these guys, into training camp for fights and whatnot. So that leads me to believe that it's okay to start truly questioning, to start weighing in on it. And like I said, my stance at this particular time is everything that he's marketed himself on and the way that he's been promoted, his self realization or of what he is, his position in the game. I just really don't know how you let the man who beat you and beat you so convincingly. I just don't understand. I just don't know that you take $10 million or $1 million. I don't know what the number is. I just don't know how you do it, and it's not some kind of It's not some kind of outcry. When he was truly vocal about Anthony Joshua needing to that he could not come back from his situation. I'm gonna tell you what. I had sent a text message to one fighter about calling in. I didn't hear nothing back from that guy. There is an individual that I do kind of want to hear from if I can get them to call in. So I'm gonna take a shot real quick. I don't know what I got them in my phone as. They have something interesting that I wanna know about. Since I'm on here, ain't like I can go to the gym or anything right now. So I'm gonna see if this person will holler at me real quick. But yeah, give this person a couple of minutes, see if they hit me back. Like I said, the last person that I tried to call in was Josh Greer Jr. As I was just talking through with B, I thought that was an interesting potential opportunity for Top Rank, who's talking about having fights starting in June. And I don't know if you're aware of it, aware of it. But at super bantamweight, 118 pounds, just a couple of weeks ago, we should have gotten the second U.S. fight, I believe, of Naoya Inoue against the Casemiro kid. And Inoue hadn't come over from Japan quite yet when the shelter-in-place situation started, and the Casemiro kid had been over here because he was actually training in Las Vegas, I believe. And so on that card, which should have been April 25th, actually it was a lot of good fights on that April 25th card. But in the co-main event, should have been Joshua Greer against, I want to say, Andrew Maloney. They were going to fight for like interim title. And when everything shut down, that fight went away. But now here, like I said, is an opportunity that if Top Rank wanted to do a big time fight, conceivably, a world title fight, conceivably, they could try to put Casemiro against Joshua Greer Jr. out of Chicago. Now, I don't know how the money would work. I did see some rumblings and grumblings about that potential matchup maybe a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. And Joshua Greer Jr. was on his social media expressing that he was, interested in that shot. Being able to skip the interim fight to go straight against the champion. I haven't seen a whole lot of Casemiro. I thought it was interesting how he knocked Tete out. I think that was like a second round knockout. But I'm not really familiar with Casemiro. I have been watching Joshua Greer Jr. very closely since going back to 2016 maybe, starting on a Showbox card that was up in Detroit at the MGM Detroit, whatever it's called. So I was kind of excited for the young man to get a shot at at a world title, and it'd be interesting, and I would imagine if they can make it work financially, Top Rank would love to, as they put these cards together. The word is they're trying to scale them to about 3 or 4 fights per show, and maybe 2 cards per week, possibly. It would be phenomenal if one of those fights was a world title fight. But like I said, I don't know how they divvy up the money, and can they make it work? Damn, this person not even calling me back. I'm gonna try one more person who's a boxing figure. Let me see if this cat holler at me. Now they text back. Let me so I'm gonna get this person on and see if talk some boxing. I got some interesting conversation for this person. Damn. 6'3". If I can get a confirmation that they're gonna call me, I'll tell you who it is. You probably won't know this person anyway. The average person is not gonna know them anyway, but they do have some interesting. They got some news. They got a story to tell. But yeah, anyway, like I said, I was gonna try to. Oh, they're calling in. So okay. Hello?
Hey.
Hey, what's going on, champ?
Hey, how are you? Pretty well. I'm all right.
Hey, let me introduce you real quick. I'm already live and whatnot, so let me let people know who they're listening to. But Right now we have on the line Alycia Baumgardner. What are you at? Super featherweight?
Correct. Yep.
Super featherweight. Fighting out of I'm just gonna say the Midwest, but anyway, Alycia Baumgardner. So you know who I'm talking to. Usually I have it set up where I got some graphics on the screen and whatnot. But since I just kind of cold called you, I just want people to know who. Actually, I'm gonna type it on here right now so anybody that tunes in will know who I'm talking to. But so what's going on with you?
Same old. Boxing life.
Have you been able?
Really much,
Have you been able to get back in the gym with some of the reopening going on?
Somewhat, yeah. I got to, yep.
So one thing, we'll get into a couple of things, but one thing I wanted to touch on was you were actually scheduled to fight, or maybe it was like 2 or 3 weeks after the shelter in place. This caused you to miss a fight up in Detroit, right?
Yeah, correct.
So.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, how, because I know, I think it was March 13th. I was going to a fight up in Toledo, and then what? Were you like a week and a half after that? Was it the 10th or the 20th when you were gonna fight?
It was the 20th.
Okay, the 20th. So it was a few weeks later. Mm-hmm. Were you kind of holding out hope that it was gonna be a way for you guys to get that together? Because I know in Toledo they actually tried like 2 or 3 different backup plans, and the state didn't approve any of them. Did you kind of sense you weren't going to get that fight, or did the promoter try to work to see what they could do?
Yeah, I was hoping that it was going to fall through. I kept a positive mindset to it. I'm like, I see other stuff was shutting down, but I'm like, maybe this one might be okay because, it was going to be at the casino, but we got that call probably like the fight week. I think it was that Wednesday. Yeah, man, they said that we couldn't do it. So I'm like, damn. So yeah, I was hoping we was able to, get that fight in. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. So.
Now, were you headlining that card?
I was the co-main event.
Okay.
Yep.
Who was going to be in the main event?
It was going to be I couldn't tell you offhand.
I can't remember
I was just so worried about getting me on there.
Got you. So one thing that I wanted, let me get to the one very serious and kind of sad. Well, I'll segue into that with this question. You were doing some promotion and whatnot around March 13th or March that week, and you actually, I think maybe that Saturday, you had a meet and greet at a mall or something, and I thought it was kind of strange with what was going on that you went on and went through with that, but you did. What was kind of the thinking at that time in doing a meet and greet with shaking hands and taking pictures and whatnot?
Yeah, so it was at the Villa, and we had already planned the meet and greet, and it turned out really great. I feel like the media had a lot to do with people and having fear and stuff, but it was really cool. We had, safety precautions as far as washing your hands and hand sanitizer, and a lot of people came out. So, you have those people who, are worried about it, and then you have those people who are like, you know what, we live it, do it. You feel me? So we didn't let that stop us, and it was a great turnout. So I didn't have no concerns of it, and it was great. It was great promotion for the fight. People got to come out. They got some bracelets, a signed poster. We had a boxing hitting bag there, so it was great, and people were shopping. So it's not going to affect everybody how it affects a lot of people, if that makes any sense.
Was that up in Michigan or in Ohio?
That's in Detroit.
I was in Detroit. Okay. So with that said, though, I mean, I didn't say anything to you, or I didn't even bother texting you and whatnot. But I just hoped, that you would have done that, kind of keeping some precautions in mind, just because at that point we really didn't know what we were dealing with. But unfortunately, you are kind of connected to this to a further extent, because unfortunately your trainer was affected by this and has passed away in Tony Harrison's father, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So I don't want to be insensitive to that or anything, but prior to him, having that situation, or him being diagnosed with that, how had you worked with him recently? I mean, you were doing some training and whatnot for getting ready for your event. How recent were you working with him before his situation occurred?
Yeah, so it was the week of the fight. That was our last week that we was working together, and then they called off the fight, and then he told me to stay at home and just enjoy the time off. And that was the last time that I seen my coach, was the last week of fight week. So that was about it. That was the last time I seen him.
Did you get some updates kind of when they figured out, what he was being affected by? Were you kept in the loop of any of that? I mean, I know you and Tony, obviously that being his son, you guys have some kind of relationship. Did they give you a heads up that his health was taking a turn for the worse?
I mean, they did keep us, updated, and if you've been paying attention and what the virus does and how it can take effect, pretty much, took a effect on Coach, and he fought through it as much as he could, but there's so much that your body can take, and I think with all that, him being sick for a little while, it just kind of took over, unfortunately.
Yeah, I definitely it kind of hit home for me, because during the whole build up to the rematch with Jamel, I just kind of really liked how he presented himself, and how when he did get his time on camera. I like to hear boxing minds, and I like to hear serious boxing people sometimes, and I just felt like his contribution to that rivalry, I don't know, it just resonated with me. And then to see the performance that he was able to get out of his son, even though he came up short that night, like I said, it just when I started seeing the post from Tony that his father had passed away, it just kind of just a messed up feeling.
Yeah, it was. Coach Ali, he was a great man. Anybody that knew him or been around him or even just heard about him, you had that sense of just who he was and who he was as a person. And in the short period of time that I was able to work with him, I gained so much knowledge, and was just able to get that from him. And he knew a lot just about boxing, and we would talk about it, and just his expertise on it was awesome. And I cherished every bit of information and knowledge and stories that I got from him. So, it was unfortunate, but he was a great coach. Anybody could tell you that.
Right. Now, like, I'm here in Dayton, Ohio. It's not a lot of gyms around me, and I'm a guy, I really get into the techniques of boxing, and we often hear, when there's coaching changes and whatnot, we hear about, how it's kind of funny it could be kind of funny to think that somebody that's been fighting for, since they were in their teens or even before they were 10 years old, that you could just get with the coach and learn something new. I'm always like, well, what is that? Can you give me an example of what that is? Like, what is there to learn by standing in front of somebody and trading blows? So was there, can you recall any specific technique or a combination, a favorite combination that he had, or a way to approach the sport in any way? Can you share one thing maybe that he enlightened you to?
Yeah, if it's one thing, it's the basics of boxing. It was the basics that he showed me, and in the way to make me understand on his perspective what's important to me. You can, like you said, you can go with a lot of trainers and they can teach you a lot of things, but the basic things is what works in the boxing. A jab is going to work, and if you throw your jab in your right hand, should be following, and just the slipping and just the countering and stuff. So it was the basic stuff that Coach knew and how to fight. You can see that in the fight when Tony fought Charlo, and he used his jab perfectly and dominated just like that. So he was just so good at using the basics and knowing the importance of the jab and just staying calm and relaxing, and not too relaxed, but making sure that you were comfortable and stay calm.
Did you make it out there with them for that fight, or did you stay out this way and just watch it on TV with the rest of us?
No, I went out there.
Okay. Can you walk us through kind of, what you were going through that fight? Like you said, I don't know if I've really seen a guy actually get stopped in a fight that was like doing that well in a fight or fighting so well. I don't know if I've seen that in a while. And then to do it, kind of fight so different, and then it to be completely night and day from what we saw in the first fight. Can you kind of just walk us through what you saw in that in the rematch?
Yeah. So again, leading up to the rematch, we had a great camp. I was in that camp, so Tony trained well for that, and up into the fight. Come fight night, it's time to fight, and, we're all excited or whatever, and, Tony's doing what he's doing, and, you start seeing little things, on the outside as a fighter, like, oh, maybe you need to do this, you need to do that, but, he had his corner for that, and again, you can have your corner, but, that individual person is fighting in there, so can't say so much on his corner, it's the individual and how they were, moving in there and stuff, but I had him winning up until the knockout.
Yeah, it was like I said, one of my favorite fights, just to see the strategy employed and
yeah, I think it was great. I feel like that the whole build up for that fight was like great. You know what I'm saying? The promotion for the fight. It was great. It was great, and I think it made boxing just even more better in 2020.
Right. I don't know if you were aware of it, but I saw where Erickson Lubin had some kind of issue, I think, with some comments. I don't know if Tony set him on a call in to something, but Lubin was just like issued a challenge, like he needed to hear something in the next 2 or 3 days. And that that's who he wanted next. Is there do you have any sense? I don't know if you've spoken with Tony since all of this transpired, but do you even have any idea of kind of how he plans to return to the game? I mean, losing such a pivotal figure in his fighting career.
Right. That's something that Tony could answer for you, and can give you that direct answer. That's all I really can say with that. So, I definitely see him getting back in there, but I don't know when.
Right. So for you, it creates a situation where you had developed this great comfort level and this rapport and this learning, we're learning things that were working for you. Have you started the process of identifying, who you can start working with moving forward?
Yeah, I'm still going to have the same team. I have the pleasure of working with LJ, who happens to be my strength and conditioning and coach, as well as Tony. So his brother will be my trainer, and then I will also have a few other people in there as well. So I've already been able to work with him for the time that I've been in Detroit. So we're still working on a few other things, but I have an idea on who I want to be my trainer. And at this stage in my career, and if it's one thing that I've learned from Coach Ali is, he gave me the tools. I have all the tools in the book for boxing. I just have to use them and use them in the right way. And so getting a new trainer, a freshman trainer, for me, I don't feel like it's necessary. I feel like when you have someone that knows the sport of boxing and what you can do to win a fight and have that expertise and that knowledge, which LJ has, which Tony has, which and just the people that I'm surrounded by, that's what I need, and that's what I'm going to continue to have in my corner. So.
So now you moved over to King's Promotions?
Yep. Been signed with King's Promotions since last year of 19.
Have they been in touch with you in terms of kind of keeping you abreast of whether or not, what they're working towards, or, encouraging you to stay in the gym, or, they targeting a next event, or kind of what's been the direction from your promoter?
Yeah, so my promoter, we stay in touch, and we've been having a few discussions on what we're going to do to move forward. Making sure that I stay in shape, just stay active is important. So, we're still discussing a few things and what we want to do for the end of the year until things start picking up. So we've been in talks. So it's just a matter of time and how we want to have those placements set up.
Was there, you had the situation where you were going to do the co-main, fighting this co-main. Was there anything laid out for what was next for you? Were they looking at maybe working with a bigger promoter? I know we've been chasing these bigger fights down, and you're in one of the more exciting divisions, on the women's side, and it's like, well, when is everybody going to get together and actually try to bring some of these fights and make them happen? So was there any long-term plan out there of how to start getting you towards going in that direction?
Yeah, absolutely. We had a few talks with a few, networks and some people in the boxing industry to move forward and to see what we can do to build that super feather division up, and me included. So everything has been talked about. It's just, again, laying down the foundation and doing so, and moving forward. We can talk every day and all day about boxing, what we want to do, but the action has to be put behind it. And so until then, I don't really say too much, because I like the action. Everyone wants to see the action put behind the words. So yes, we've been talking about it, and yes, we do have some things in order. So, and with this whole virus thing, it kind of slowed a lot of things down, not just for me, but for a lot of people. So some things have been put up, but it's not saying that they're not going to be continued. So again, it's just a matter of time, but believe that I will have that platform by the end of the year.
Yeah, what was your thought to the start of the year? We had some pretty great developments. There were some weight classes above you, but I caught a very interesting fight over there in Hammond, Indiana, with the that was up at super lightweight with Mary McGee and whatnot, but and then your former opponent Lenarda 2 was also on there, and I just really, it just seemed like it was an excellent night of boxing. I mean, it was some damn good fights. The opponents that they brought in for Lenarda 2 and as well as McGee, I mean, they really brought it. And I thought, I don't know what the pay-per-views work. There was a chance for people to stream that. I don't know what the cost of it was, but I was like, it just carrying on from the Sieta Ruse fight and Alicia Napoleon, and then the Jimenez and Franchon Cruz Dezern and whatnot. I just really liked the momentum that you guys were picking up.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I thought it was really great, and like you mentioned, the fights were competitive. It was a good time, and so I think if we can continue that, and it's not even us, it's the promoters, it's the networks to say, hey, let's do this, let's put these women on, pay attention to the other weight classes as well, and you'll have a great show. So that's what it comes down to. We are so willing to be on the stage, just like the men are, to get paid good money as well, and just get the recognition that we deserve, period. So we leave that to our promoters and our managers to do that leg work for us, and again, us promoting our own selves as something that I do, to do the same.
Got you. Now, so you said you were in that camp, in the preparation for the Charlo rematch with Tony. Did you guys spend like the last month or so down in Florida?
Yeah, we were in Florida. Mm-hmm.
So you said, you say that you're in camp, kind of as somebody that's not fighting on the card, and you're giving up several pounds to a guy like Tony. So what was your role in that camp, or how was it beneficial to your development?
Well, yeah. So I was getting ready for my fight.
Oh, that's right.
Tony had fought a week after I did, so I was down there getting ready for my fight in Harrisburg. I was the main event in that card, so it worked out perfectly. So we had girls sparring down there. I trained with Tony and all them and did everything they did, so I was well prepared for my fight. And as you can see, I got my first round stoppage, and with the girl that's never been stopped. And so yeah, camp was awesome. That was the best camp that thus far. So I've seen a lot of potential on where I can be as an athlete, as a boxer, and it was awesome. I enjoyed every bit of it. And that was my camp I got to have with coach as well, so it meant a lot.
Okay. You are very highly rated, in the amateurs and whatnot, and you're traveling across the Toledo area. Are you keeping an eye on what's going on with O'Shea Jones, by chance?
Yeah, so I know O'Shea. Obviously, we sparred a few times, and I see her doing her thing, and it's really exciting because, again, for any woman in the game, and amateurs, pros, we're making a name for ourselves, and she's on her way of being one of the best women boxers.
Okay. So, coming out of this situation, kind of how, I guess, what's your outlook, for the next month? I mean, when you start ramping up, what's going on, or, will there be like a definitive plan for you, or is it just to get back in the gym and get active, and then, get some kind of word from your promoter? How do you kind of restart?
Yeah, so I feel like from moving forward, we're looking to set a plan up. I already was in the gym for my fight, so I didn't really take too much time off to not stay in shape. So staying in shape and just keeping my weight down was something that I've been working on. But we want to have a plan for the rest of the year, and so we're just writing that out and seeing how we can execute it.
What's your feel moving over to Kings and kind of seeing where they've operated, maybe what kind of relationships they have? Are you getting a sense, some sense of their stability and whatnot, or just kind of having a positive outlook with them versus things started with a bang with you while you were with Real Deal Boxing in the Evander Holyfield situation, but it soon after fell apart. So just based on that experience, are you seeing things out of the Kings team that just has you optimistic about taking you where you're trying to go?
I think Kings is doing a great job promoting me. I would say they're a little better than when I was with Real Deal, just on certain aspects. After I received my first loss, I had quite a few months of a layoff, and so when I got to sign with them, they put 3 fights on me, and we were ready to keep moving forward from that point. So I think they're doing a great job with moving me. They're not in any regard trying to hold me back, because they know my potential as a women boxer and in the super featherweight. So again, they're working with other promoters and as well, and so is my manager on working on what we can do to just give me that recognition that I know that once I get, people would know. So I always look at things as a positive outlook and how we can execute. So I just got to do my job, and they got to do theirs. And as a team, we come and communicate on how we can work together.
Good. It seems like they have more of like a footprint here in the Midwest that it just seems like they know the area that they're working in, and there's a history there, and like you said, they could keep you more active. Whereas it just seems like Real Deal kind of was doing some things around Louisville and whatnot, but it just seemed things just kind of fell apart from them, and it just disintegrated basically.
Yeah, they were up and coming, like a new promotional company starting out. They had the face of Evander Holyfield, but the people running it, that's something different.
Right.
King's Promotion, Marshall, he's been the game for a while. Being a boxer himself, his son fighting, him being a promoter, them having shows probably every month, I would say, in Philly. So I've been able to build my fan base out in Philly, DC, Maryland area. So it's great. So we're hoping for the best, and as a team.
Got you. What's your I don't know, what's your expectation or whatever? It seems like with this fight that's being discussed between Claressa Shields and Layla Ali, it looks like somebody's going to try their hardest to make that thing happen, and I think that I do think that Layla wants it to happen, and I think it's a phenomenal opportunity for Claressa, just in terms of the magnitude of it with the name involved, and it can attract investors and whatnot, and people that want to see it go off. So just what's your take in the clash of styles and someone coming back to the game after being off for nearly a decade and a half, at 42?
Yeah, so, overall, I say it's a great opportunity for Claressa. I feel like I think she wants that just to really solidify herself and who she is. I know she has, the belts and the gold medals, but I feel like with this, she really solidifies herself. I feel like for Layla, it has to be worth her time to get back in the gym and train. So you really have to ask yourself if she's going to do it for her legacy that's been cool, like people know who she is because of, you know, who she is and what she's done, or does she want to, you know, put that up at stake and, you know, fight Clarissa, who's obviously hungry and wants a fight like that to solidify herself. So, you know, I'm all for women's boxing, so I guess we just have to see how that goes.
Where are you with the how you see it playing out, or do you have concerns? Like, I mean, Layla is the bigger woman. You know, usually we associate bigger with stronger, but I mean, she doesn't really have the amateur background that Clarissa has. But then to counter that, Clarissa hasn't. You know, the pool of fighters at her weights hasn't been that great to where it's super extensive, but she still went through the process and is a 2-time gold medalist. And then, you know, we've seen what she's done in a short time, you know, in the pros. And then one thing that jumps off the screen to me, I feel like her enthusiasm towards her craft and seeing the things that she's worked on and the chances that she takes in trying to apply some of this different stuff, I see her being, you know, fairly advanced in this thing. And I don't know what Layla comes back, you know, what's her calling card going into that matchup?
So that's what I'm saying. I think I mean, you explained it well. I mean, you explained it well. I think it's just a matter of what is it worth? You know what I'm saying? Do we want to do it for women's boxing? We can say that, or do we want to just do it? You know, just because you know they're looking at all sorts of, you know, you need the other person to make it happen. So, you know, and like again, you know how a fight goes. Anybody can get caught with a punch. Clarissa can get caught by a punch. She could get caught by a punch. You know, they're big girls, and they're heavy hitters. So, you know, it'd be nice to see.
So, kind of what's you know, what's kind of been your highlight for the women's game to this point? You know, kind of what were you most excited about? You know, for your side of the one quiet thing that went to the wayside along here was the fact that you had the chance to spend some time in the camp of Cecilia Braekhus, you know, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago or whatever now. We would have had that fight between her and McCaskill. I thought that would have continued the momentum you know, for the women's game and whatnot. And then, you know, last weekend, I guess we would have seen the last fight of Clarissa versus Daguerre, or however you say her name. But you know, what kind of was you know, your highlight of the year for women's boxing to this point?
You said what was my what?
What was kind of like your highlight of the year in women's boxing?
You know, I definitely seen it just flourishing more than ever. I thought we were making great fights, great matchups, like we need to. I feel like women's boxing. I feel like you got some of the fighters who are shying away from not wanting to fight the best. And why not fight the best? Like it's time for it now. And the more that we do that, the more that we set an example for the future and for the future young girls coming up and for future professionals as women. So, you know, it was definitely flourishing, and I hope that it continues to flourish.
Right. I think my favorite moment was that knockdown of Alycia Napoleon Espinosa. You know, just to see a single punch knockdown on the women's side. You know, I know one of the knocks against Claressa Shields is that she's not getting knockouts, and there's constant questioning of her power and whatnot. And with her kind of having the position in the game in women's boxing that she does, like I said, I just thought it was phenomenal for Sieta Roos to put Napoleon down with a single shot. And early in the fight, And I just think that type of excitement, some of us can appreciate boxing and everything going 10 rounds and, volume punching and so on and so forth. But, like I said, the way she set it up, I just thought, and then with Napoleon falling back into the ropes and whatnot, somebody at my job, I put it in this context. Nobody at my job said anything the week after Wilder and the rematch between Wilder and Fury. Nobody said anything to me. Somebody actually commented about the Sieta Roos knockdown and the fight in general. So
yeah, man, that was a great fight. I love that that was on TV, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that was on.
Or was it on the app?
No, that was on Claressa and Habazin.
Yeah. So again, that was great, and it was awesome. I think the crowd loved it. It got, I was on Twitter tweeting about it, and that was an awesome women's fight. So I thought I forgot about that fight. That's why we need to keep them going so we can, be relevant. So we'll see.
Okay.
So like if promoters get together and make it happen, we can continue doing it.
Okay. I know you're in the same weight class as Michaela and whatnot. I know she's on another, with Top Rank, and they probably they have their own strategy that they're working for her and whatnot. But DeBella has some females on his roster and whatnot. Just as in a year and a half or once things are kind of there's some kind of schedule that can be made out of this thing. Who do you see being able to get matched up against to like really have the moment for Alycia Baumgardner? Is there anybody out there?
What is your question?
Just with all the different rosters that are out there, if it's someone that we do know or don't know, is there just someone that you're targeting just to kind of have the moment for things to take off for you individually?
Yeah, I'm willing to fight anybody. I put that out there. But what we have to understand is with a fighter like me, I'm going to bring a fight. I'm going to bring a great fight. And I say that I'm one of the best women fighters. So with that comes all aspects as far as promotion goes, as far as pay goes, as far as just being recognized how we should be, So that's one thing. And two, it's just knowing that I'm just willing. But it just has to make sense.
Okay.
A lot of things have to make sense when you're making these fights. Again, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Now, were you able?
Something else I was gonna say, I forget.
Were you able to see that Leonardo 2 fight that was over in Hammond, Indiana?
No, I didn't get to watch it. No.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I just I watched you guys when you had your fight and down in Louisville and whatnot, and I sat there that night, and if you had saw it, I just wondered, did you think there had been much improvement in her game? Personally, I was kind of.
I feel like just from the performance when I had with her and how she fought Katie Taylor was the same. I don't really feel like it was anything really different. But I didn't get to see her last fight, so I can't really speak on that. But from when I fought her and then when she fought Katie Taylor, I thought it was pretty much the same.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, Katie. I thought things were starting to go in a different direction for her, but still some of more of the same from what I saw against you. But the fight that was in Indiana, she did add some different wrinkles and kind of gave me some things to appreciate more so in her game than what I had seen before that. But then again, I mean, that was against a totally different opponent and whatnot. So versus, you know, fighting a Katie Taylor. So that's that.
Right.
But any last? Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
You know, what's the any updates or developments in the relationship with Adidas?
Yeah, we're staying close in contact. You know, right now, we're just being able to do a little more visual on the net, on the gram. You know, they had me do a little thing. You know, just shouting out Adidas and seeing what people are doing in quarantine and stuff. So yeah, that relationship is still there. We're building again. Everything's been put on hold, so you know we can't really do so much because what I do is fight, and so with the fighting comes other things. But we're also able to, you know, work outside of the ring and build that relationship. So that's been going really well.
What was the theme or the colors that you were running with for your fight kit? Or you just want to keep that secret until you?
Yeah, I want to keep that a secret. that uniform is really. That uniform is gonna be something. This last fight, man, it was. I was so ready, and you know, it was gonna be my third fight with my coach, and we had everything was just in place. Everything was just ready to go, and then, you know, everything just got shut down. So. You know, I'm gonna save that uniform for the next fight, and everyone can get a look at that.
Who was that opponent, by the way? Who were you scheduled to fight?
What was her name? Man, look, I couldn't even tell you.
I know.
Billy, it's like what was it? Damn. Look, I don't know. My brain is just like all over the place. I forget.
No, I knew I was about a week. I was like a week away from you know, inviting you on and you know, to try to talk about it and get the word out and whatnot. And I hadn't really started looking into who she was. You know, I just had you on my calendar, so I don't remember what her name was, but.
Yeah, man. If I could tell you, I would, but I really don't remember.
Got you. Hey, well, look, you know, great to catch up with you. You know, unfortunately, you know, you didn't get to get that fight in and whatnot, but you know, continue to be safe and you know, stay focused and be stronger on the other side of this thing. Well, I guess that's a closing question right there. Now that I've just kind of stumbled onto it, do you think, you know, when you come out of this situation with a renewed, especially experiencing the way that you lost your coach and Coach Ali, will there be more of a just
more fuel? Look, I'll answer that right now. It's changed a lot of things. It changed my mindset on just how to move, and you know, it's more fuel to my fire for real. And so I have just more of a drive to become a world champion for my coach, because he talked about it plenty of times and discussed the things that we were going to do as a team. And so, you know, I have him. He might not be here physically, but you know, spiritually he's here, and I'm just way more determined to get that title and to show. Not just that, but to show, you know, the boxing world that Alycia Baumgardner is the bomb for a reason. And I know a lot of people want to see it. I know it's just been like a lot of just talk up and, you know, a little bit of action here and there. But when it's time to play, when it's time to get in there, when it's that time, you know, people will see and really appreciate what women's boxing is and what boxing is, and who I am as a person in and out the ring and what I offer to this sport. So until then, I got to continue to, you know, work on my mental and be strong, and, you know, work on just a lot of things, just being a better me. And I do that every day. There's no lacking in that. So I know that comes with a better me becomes a better me in the ring. serious. So I strive to do that.
All right, well said.
I think I answered your question.
Yes, that's what I was looking at. Was there more motivation? Easier to like you said, to approach things in a way to get from to get to where you're trying to go more quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a job, not only just with that, but my team. I have an awesome team, like with family. I have my auntie. I have, LJ, I have Tony. I have, the guys in the gym. Just all supporting me, and we're all supporting each other. As boxers, this sport is lonely, so it's nice to be encouraged by your fellow teammates and people that's in your life to want to see you succeed. So we're going to do that, and we're going to continue to do that. We have a great team. There's no lack.
Have you been to the gym in the last couple? Or well, what I'm getting at, I saw where it looked like Tony had some sand or something delivered there for some kind of training program or something involving like running in sand or moving in sand. Was that what that was about?
So not only do they do boxing there, but they do, they train basketball players, football players, strength and conditioning for the athletes period. So he just got that at the gym. So it's nice, it's his gym, so, if I want to go to the gym and work out, I'm going to go to the gym and work out, because I have that luxury of doing that, and, so.
Okay, I just appreciate the dude investing in himself and investing in his craft and his preparation. Giving him a chance to add different things to his training and whatnot. So I just thought that was awesome. To kind of watching that and being nosy.
Yeah, if you ever train in the sand, that workout is brutal.
Exactly.
It's a good workout. It's a really good workout.
It stuck out like a sore thumb, with it being a bunch of sand delivered to Detroit. Not every fighter in the Midwest is going to be able to duplicate that kind of training and whatnot.
Right. So, like I mentioned, we got a great team. We got some people. So I don't want to say too much, but when it's time to put it to action, you'll be able to see it.
Okay, well.
But yeah, it's nice.
Okay. All right. Well, like I said, thanks for checking in. I was on here, and like I said, I was a week away or so. I was actually the night that I was talking to Albert Bell because he was fighting that weekend, and then my plan was to get you on the following weekend, ahead of your fight and whatnot. But I really hadn't done a whole lot with boxing since that weekend, March 13th.
Yeah, I feel like after that, everything seems to be a blur because, wow, it's crazy. We were already in the bag. I'm about to be 26 next week, so I'm like, damn. It's just moving fast, so it's crazy.
Got you. All right, well, like I said, your last statement, in my opinion, was a great closing statement. As things happen for you, as some new stuff gets lined up, if you don't get in touch with me, I'll probably know what's going on with you anyway, and we'll link back up.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Take care, champ.
All right, you too.
Bye. So that was Super Featherweight Alycia the Baumgardner out of Ohio, trains in Detroit. And if you couldn't put two and two together, her trainer was the father of former WBC Super Welterweight champion Tony Harrison. If you know Tony or follow him on social media, his father passed away maybe 2 weeks ago, and it was it was due to COVID-19, the coronavirus. And a lot of times, right now you're seeing stuff on a couple of, it's been dudes in the rappers or in the rap in the hip hop industry and whatnot, music industry that I've seen pass away. Some DJs that I follow, or some DJs that I follow, friends of theirs have passed away. Just like random, figures in the New York area have directly been affected, by COVID-19. The two guys on the Zone's daily boxing show on Sirius XM, the Ak and Barak show, both of those gentlemen supposedly had the coronavirus and fought through it. And so it's mixed news and whatnot, but just to see, when I started seeing Tony Harrison post some things about it on Instagram, and I started looking into because he was a very young looking man. His father, very young looking man, very well spoken. He impressed me. I liked what he did with his son. We don't give all of these different father and son teams a lot of, not everybody is revered the way that the Mayweathers were. But some of these different fathers out here, Bill Haney, Teofimo Lopez Sr., they don't have, some of these guys don't have 4 and 5 or 6 world champions that they're training and guiding. Some of these guys only work with 1 or 2 fighters. But, it's just interesting to get different figures in here and that are having success. And like I said, the change of pace from the first fight between Jermell and Tony, I didn't expect that, and they delivered. And if weren't for some things starting to slip there, in the last couple rounds and whatnot, maybe that there could have been a different outcome there. But I just thought that was, definitely a sad moment for the sport of boxing. I know Tony did he actually shared like a way if people wanted to attend the service through their live or something. They set that up. That was a little weird for me. I don't, being that I kind of had a fondness for the guy, and when he kind of came into the forefront for me, I had intentions of one day trying to talk to the guy, and going up to the gym and whatnot. But like I said, when they put the thing out there, to tune in and observe and observe the service and whatnot, I felt like that would have been intruding. I didn't know the man like that. So, but that's where we are right now. A lot of these people that are passing away from that, the families, that would be, we actually had a family member that passed away, totally different situation, right as the shelter in place went down. Somebody in my wife's family. And there were plans for a service. I think due to that person's financial situation, it ended up being a cremation. And we were going to do something for the gathering. Long history here with the individual that it was, but that person lived alone. Kind of had a weird relationship with everybody else in the family. Spent a lot of time alone, and their body was found several days after passing away, and then when the decision was made to to do the cremation and then have the service, that's just kind of, this is a person who spent probably the last 3 or 4, maybe even 5 days alive alone. Then that person's body set for 3 or 4 days alone, and then to go to the cremation process and to basically leave this world as we know it, and none of us. There was no gathering. We didn't even do any gathering. I don't even know where their remains are. Now that I think about it, so it's just very weird. I mean, could you imagine, dropping your parent or your loved one off at this hospital, and then, who knows what they're doing with the bodies right now? It's just a different world. So, excuse me for getting off on a tangent, but that was just a direct tie-in. Aside from the fight schedule being shut down and people not being able to work out, so on and so forth, here's a situation where a figure in the boxing family, passed away as Travis Kaufman. Beeb mentioned Travis Kaufman. I want to say his father passed away from complications of COVID-19 too. So that's that. Anyway, man, I've been on here way too long. I'm getting ready to get out here in the garage, get this workout in. As I mentioned at the start of this thing, check out my man Slico got bars. His new project. God bless the real. I love that title. That helps me be having interest in the dude just on the title alone. We put that up there. That's the front of the album cover. If you want to look it up on YouTube, you can check it out on there. You can, if you have, it's not on Amazon's music service. I think it's on Tidal. You can listen to it on Tidal. You can stream it if you want to hear it. Like I said, it's 12 or 13 joints. At least I'm six nice ones on there. Definitely. I haven't listened to the last 3 just yet. But through the first 6 of them joints was pretty decent, and the other 2 was solid as well. But check the video out. I Believe I Can Fly. And then there's also No Stranger for Love was like a pre-sequel. So check that out. Like I said, my name is Wood. Let me get on out of here, man. Keep extending this thing. Hey, remember, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Peace.
Back like I never left. Back like I left my keys, you can believe that. Hey, get high, stay low, go hard, get paid, provide, maintain, no pain, no gain, yeah. Everybody wanna judge, but I never hold a grudge, cause I really couldn't look at my shoes. Bankroll on floor and the hoes on go, y'all niggas can't do what I do. I done showed a lot of love and I never got it back, and I never asked for it, I'm cool. We ain't really on the job like I'm really on the job, getting smooth, tell me how they blue. Take a look in the eyes of a legend, mind over matter, let's fight this depression, let's fight this oppression, fight back with aggression, this come with your heart, I provide all the weapons. Come take a look in the eyes of a soldier, I drop that real and spread like Ebola. Man, on my word, I don't know what they told ya, I got the weight of the world on my, let me tell you, everybody know the name, I'm one-on-one, I'm a god in my lane, the devil up on me, I'm watching the flames, the Lord in my heart, I got my angel wings, they talk about people accomplishing dreams, they talk about me and the rest of my team, keeping the G and they don't what it seems, it get complicated like Howard Levine, yeah, top down, screaming out money anything, box out, never let it in my lane, cropped out, you would get taken out the frame, dropped out, nigga had to find another way, I don't like when you bitch niggas hate from afar, I respect when it's supposed to hurtful, ain't about what you say, it's about what you show me, decisions you make in reversal, I got a whole list of shit I'm allergic to, fuck niggas, snitch niggas, I don't want no sort of ties, most of y'all niggas feel lazy and lazy, like y'all never learn how to prioritize, me and my niggas, we all kinda wavy, cause niggas like us put it all on the line, straight to the Benjamins, hustle unlimited, plus you know we got unlimited vibes. Stay low, go hard, get paid, provide.